to order. If you'd all please join me, we'll stand for a moment of silence and follow that with a pledge. Thank you. Thank you. Councilor McNutt, please.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Before we continue with our roll call, I'm going to call for a minute break. Clerk needs to, her sound's not coming on her recorder. Working? Okay. Madam Clerk, would you do a roll call, please?
Councillor Bryan?
Here.
Councillor McNutt?
here.
Councillor Tappan?
Excused, will be returning.
Councillor Cormier?
Here.
Councillor Warner?
Here.
Vice Mayor Kojin?
Here.
And Mayor Diak?
Here. I will do it for him. First item of business, priorities list. Discussion possible action by City Council pertaining to City Councilor's strategic priorities. Anyone wish to bring up anything under the council's strategic priorities this evening?
Yeah, I just noticed they're rolling up the sod, so I guess the skate park is underway, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay, that's good.
Yes. Okay. Seeing none, moving on. Discussion, possible action by City Council pertaining to City Councilor's individual priorities. Anyone wish to? Okay. I'm going to take a liberty here. Councilor Tappan got called away back to duty at the hospital, and he had something that he had shared that he wanted to do under his priorities this evening. That being said, the gentleman is here, and I would like to go ahead and take care of this. And it is from Council Member Levi Tappan, and what it is he wanted to recognize the Seventh-day Adventist Church and all of their hard work that they've done on their property over there at the corner of Lake Powell Boulevard and Copper Mine Road, along adjacent to their building itself, the wall, the garden, the arboretum in the back, and everything there. It is a true asset to that community. And earlier today, the gentleman that is here to receive that did come in and wanted to know where he should show up, and I see he's standing in the audience. So I know that Councilor Tappan wanted to be a part of this and make that as a special thing to him. And you and I introduced ourselves to one another, and I forgot your name already, but it started with a B.
Buddy.
Buddy.
Was here.
Oh, was he? Did he have to leave, or is he here?
I think he's just outside on a phone call.
Okay.
Yeah, there he is.
Okay. And this is Pastor
James. Pastor James.
Pastor James, for Levi Tappan, Counselor Tappan, I just got through telling the audience here and those at home that Counselor, oh,
Let him do
good,
it. Yeah.
off the hook. There you go.
Catch your breath.
Well, I was on our strategic priorities. Did I miss that section?
Well, you can go from broke.
Under
Trying to
community
cover for you.
On the community development, we have objective 1.1 is kind of streetscapes. Objective 1.4 is attractive neighborhoods. So, get my notes out here. I would just like to recognize a member of our community, if I catch my breath. The Seventh-day Adventist Church has put a lot of time and hard work into the corner of Lake Powell Boulevard and Copper Mine. And I consider that one of our 3 main entrances to the page. So I wanted to let you know that your hard work does not go unnoticed, and I wanted to publicly thank you. This is how we start cleaning up page, 1 corner at a time, 1 business at a time, and 1 front yard at a time. So thank you. I believe Pastor Crosby's here. So I wanted to just present this certificate of appreciation for property beautification.
Anyone else have anything on individual priorities? Seeing none, we'll move along. Minutes, I'd entertain.
Would approve the minutes.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Minutes are approved. Consent agenda. The consent portion of the agenda is a means of expediting routine matters that must be acted upon by council. All items approved will be done by one undebatable motion passed unanimously. Any item may be removed for debate on request of any member of council. Items removed from the consent portion of the agenda will become the first item of business under the regular agenda. I would like to remove one item on our consent agenda, and that is under 2, under information. From the meeting. City Council cannot discuss or take any legal action on matters during the hearing from the citizens. However, at the conclusion of the hearing from the citizens, individual members of council may respond to criticism made by those who have addressed the council, may ask staff to review the matter, or may ask that the staff put that matter on a future agenda. At this time, if there's anyone that wishes to address the council, if you'll raise your hand, I'll recognize you, and you'll step to the podium and give us your name and address. That time would be yours. Does anyone wish to address the council this evening? Yes, sir.
Page. It's mine. I have anybody. Not. They can tell you what it is. Starts with a 0 and a 911. The only thing I want to remark about tonight, because you will be getting remarks from me in writing in the future until I sell my house, so help me sell my house, is I'd like to remind you that this place is all a result of the Bureau of Reclamation building a dam out here, and then along with those dams comes national recreation areas. I have a lot of experience with that, 32 years in the National Park Service. The only reason for the existence of PAGE is to support for the federal government what the National Park Service really doesn't want in that area, and that's motels, more intrusions, less natural environment. So you need to provide a lot of other things that nobody even thinks about. One of the things is I'm going to be abandoning the corrals, which I've taken care of now for several years. You know, there are a lot of people in town who have no place to keep horses, and you've got reservation off that way, National Park this way, Bureau of Land Management that way. You have to go to Utah to even start out to have horses. So it's something you're going to have to give consideration to service the people and the public. Some of the national parks I was in, I could even have my own horse at my duty station because there was no place, but that's why they have gateway cities. And it is for the support of the National Park Service and to keep that type of stuff out. And moving here in 1985, I was very impressed with PAGE. I still love PAGE, but PAGE has turned from what I moved here to a lot less desirable. There are many, many things happening here. I'll probably be writing just some notes about them as you speak about them because I'm going to keep track of things until I at least sell my property. So keep that in mind that it is a gateway city. And as far as that church operation down there with that corner, fabulous. I was asked to do that as part of the deal of me taking over the corner on the other side, but it was private property. They have done a fabulous job. The only problem I have with it is that building thing that they put out there. My wife wants me to build something like that at our new place. And it's just like, damn. Have a nice day.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, moving along, unfinished business, discussion, possible action by City Council pertaining to a Contour Airlines update. Mike?
Mayor Dyak, members of the council, we're trying to connect here on Skype with Matt with Contour Airlines. Hopefully everything will flow here. I'm going to defer to Kane and see where we're at in the process. Here we go. Matt, can you hear us? He's on the plane.
He's on a plane.
Okay. Can you hear us? Matt, can you hear us?
Quiet, he said.
Yeah. You got his number? He's on his phone.
Phone and listen to it that way.
And we're calling them right now. I have to put them on speaker here. Yeah.
Oh, he put his phone on airplane mode.
That's a good one.
Oh, we got him up here on this one now, these too.
Yeah, but no volume.
He is a plane. He's in a plane. Uh-oh, I hope he doesn't go.
I think he's trying to get to a location. You got him?
No, he
He's not picking up his phone. Okay.
Type him a message on Skype to answer his.
Yeah. We're trying to talk with him a little bit.
He just typed something to us. He says, I've got headphones.
Mayor, in the interim,
Sorry, I have the wrong number.
in the interim, while we're trying to get a hold of Matt, the
Just move
purpose
on.
of,
Come back to this item?
yeah,
Try that? Okay.
we try that.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and do that, or I was going to say we could wing it. Agenda.
Well, in the interim, maybe we're able to connect with him. The purpose of the agenda item was to have an update on the discussion and to inform the community that the fall schedule has been open for Contour Airlines. So if you go online now, you'll see November 5th to January 8th is actually a schedule. And it's a 9-3 frequency with routes still to Phoenix, but 3 routes going to Las Vegas. And Matt was just going to elaborate on that a little bit for this Skype interview, or not interview, but this presentation. But the purpose was to bring you up to speed that we have been accepted through the city of Phoenix on our gates, and also at McCarran Airport as well. So that's work in progress, and hopefully we'll get Matt back online. But that was more of just to notify everybody that we are on the move.
What days are Vegas?
November 5th through January 8th, that schedule is now open.
I mean, what days of the week? Sorry, what days of the week?
Very good question. My understanding, we're still running daily to Phoenix, but Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday are the tentative dates that we had down to go to Las Vegas.
And that still includes 3 dual flights to Phoenix per week.
That still includes 3 dual, yes.
Yeah. 3, so every day to Phoenix plus 3 additional back-to-back round trips.
That's
3
my
days a week and
understanding.
3 trips to Phoenix.
That is my understanding, Councilmember.
Yeah.
If that should change, we'll clear that up with Matt
Do you know that whether or not we were able to, he was able to get that other possible connection beyond yet?
I'm not aware of that at this time, Mayor.
It doesn't show on the website. You can't like go to California from Page. And it does show Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday is the available flights if you were booking from Page to Las Vegas beginning in November.
And what are the days of the week that are 2 flights a day to Phoenix? Monday, Wednesday, and Friday?
I think
was
it's
that-
Monday, Wednesday, Friday was our schedule. That's what we proposed.
Yeah.
So,
Community Development Department. Go ahead with the consent portion of this month. And I would like to read the proclamation, and then I will request a motion on the item. Proclamation, Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Peace, patience, empathy, acceptance, caring, equality. Whereas violence against women and children is the prevailing social ill due to the historical imbalance of power in gender and age. However, domestic violence is widespread and is devastating to society as a whole. And whereas 1 in every 4 women will experience domestic violence during her, and whereas approximately 15.5 million children are exposed to domestic violence every year, and whereas when family members is abused, it can have long-term damaging effects on the victim that also leave a mark on the family, friends, and the community at large. And whereas families are indispensable to a stable society, and they should be a place of support to instill responsibility and values in the next generation. And whereas violence against women and children is prevalent social ill due to the historical imbalance of power and gender. However, domestic violence is widespread and devastating to society as a whole. And whereas the problem of domestic violence is not confined to any group or groups of people, but crosses all economic, racial, gender, educational, religious, and sectoral barriers, and is sustained by sociality, indifference, and whereas the crime of domestic violence violates an individual's privacy, dignity, security, humanity due to systematic use of physical, emotional, sexual, or psychological or economic control and or abuse, and whereas victims should have help to find compassion, comfort, and healing that they need, and domestic abusers should be punished to the full extent of the law. And whereas victims of violence should have access to medical and legal services, counseling, emergency and institutional housing, and other supportive services so that they can escape the cycle of abuse. And whereas we encourage domestic violence victims and their families to seek assistance from appropriate victim services organizations such as Page Regional Domestic Violence Services. And whereas it is important to recognize the compassion and dedication of the individuals who provide services to victims of domestic violence and work in increasing public understanding to the significant problem. And whereas local programs, state coalitions, national organizations, and other agencies nationwide are committed to increasing public awareness of domestic violence and its prevalence and eliminating it through prevention and education. And whereas important partnerships have been formed among criminal and juvenile justice agencies, health providers, allied professionals, and victim services to assist victims of domestic violence and their families. And whereas we dedicate ourselves to protecting vulnerable members of our community, and whereas the City of Page has a moral obligation to work to prevent domestic violence, address its brutal and destructive effects, and make ending domestic violence a local priority. Now and therefore, the Mayor and the City Council of the City of Page do hereby proclaim the month of October 2018 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and encourage the City of Page residents to take this opportunity to find out what we can do to help stop the cycle of abuse in our community. Issued this 26th day of September 2018. William R. Dyack, Mayor. Attest, Kim Larson, City Clerk. I would ask for a motion to
October Domestic Violence Awareness Month.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously of those members present. Also in the room this evening, we have Greg Martinez, who is the director of the Page Regional Domestic Violence Center, and I'd like to call him up and give him this document for his records, and that shows the City of Page's support of Domestic Violence Month. Did you want a picture?
I missed it. You redo?
Redo.
Thank you, Mayor. We appreciate it. Yeah, we got up quicker than you did.
I had my camera on airplane mode.
Thank you. New business, discussion, possible action by City Council pertaining to Community Development Department update.
Mayor Dyack, members of the council, I felt it was necessary to at least apprise you and bring you up to date as to what's been going on the last 3 weeks that we've had an interim in place. Jerry Stabley, he come via Maricopa County, a lot of experience in Pinell County, most recently in Cochise County. And Jerry's here to help us with our systems, our process, streamlining what's happening in the Community Development Department. Another set of eyes to take a look at some other documents that are of importance here in the coming months coming to the council. Jerry is also very good friends with your interim city manager, Ken Buchanan. They're like a little group. So what you got with Ken is what you're going to get with Jerry. Straight to the point, very clear, And with that, I will pass this off to Jerry to sort of give you a little insight into the department of where we're headed, and also maybe some suggestions along the way as we look into our zoning updates and things like that. Staffing issues, Jerry's going to go through a little bit of a rundown. And again, he's only been here for 3 weeks, but he's been able to adapt. That's what he does. And with that, I'll turn it over to you, Jerry.
Okay, thank you, Mike. And Mr. Buchanan and I are actually part of a rock and roll band, so
There you go.
yeah, so I'm the sound guy for his rock and roll band. So anyway, yep, I know Ken very, very well. It's a great pleasure to be with you, Mayor, members of council tonight, and I would like to talk to you a little bit about what I've learned here in the past 3 weeks, and talk about possible directions for the department to go here in the very short term, and then through the rest of 2018, so over the next three months here. So here's our staff situation at this point in time. You've got myself, you've got Brett, who's been with the city for a long time, great employee, and he's our building official. We have a couple of vacant positions that we're looking to fill, and as a matter of fact, my hope is that we can advertise for 2 of these positions early next week. Also helping us out on a temporary basis is Tom Avant, and he's our interim planning engineer. He's got his own firm up in Utah. So the first priorities I called first wave priorities. These are the things that I wanted to approach first right off the bat here, to look at right off the bat. So I've got 4 items, and I'm going to talk about each one of them in detail. First of all, I wanted to improve customer service. That's something that the council's identified as one of your priorities. And so coming in, I was hearing about concerns that people had about our customer service in our department. So that's one of the first things I wanted to take a look at. We have a very strong base of employees right now. And as new employees come in to join us, I think one of the things that we should focus on with them is a what I call kind of a public service servant approach, which means that we're not putting ourselves above the public. We're here to serve the public. And the bottom goal there I have is putting community goals first. Sometimes planners get a little wrapped up in the things they want to accomplish personally and don't necessarily pay enough attention to what the community wants to do. And so that's one of the things I want to stress with anybody who comes on board in this department, that we all need to be public servants, so we need to be aware of what the public of our city want to accomplish. Responsiveness to our citizens, our applicants, people who are interested in doing business here is going to be very important to us, and it's one of the things I'm going to stress. And we want to help people out as much as we can. There's limits to what we can do. We can't do the projects for them. We can't draw the maps for them, but we can help them as much as we can to try to get through the process. And I've had lots of experience doing that when I was down in Pinal County for 11 years, planning director down there for 5 of those years. And in that time, a lot of people came to us, had ideas, had land, didn't really know how to work the process. So we got pretty good at working with people and try to get them to help them through the process. Staffing suggestions. One of the things that I've noticed is that the previous director seemed to focus on a lot of issues, not necessarily on the core issues of the department. And I think that's something that for a director needs to be first and foremost focused on what they're trying to accomplish, what people are doing in the department, what we're trying to accomplish with the department. So that's something that I felt could potentially change. Planner position, I understand the planner position. We had somebody for a while. She's had some issues with her visa. And if she's unable to rejoin us, I hope she can rejoin us because I hear some very good things about her. But if she is unable to rejoin us, I would suggest that we maybe look for somebody who has perhaps a little bit less experience, somebody who's just starting out. And because before Miriam joined us, the person who has the position, I understand that we were looking for 2 years to fill that position. So looking for the right person for 2 years, that's a long time to seek somebody. If you get somebody out of school, somebody who's hungry, who needs experience and is willing to travel to get that experience and is willing to learn, it can be a very good fit because they're very open to learning. They come right out of college, and so they're open to learning and are good subjects for training and can help you a lot in that regard. The other thing, I created this slide before Mike and I had a chance to take a look at it, and the consultant team for the economic development is something that I put in there, and I showed it to him. He said, absolutely, that's what he's thinking about as well. You get the advantage of having a team approach. You get instead of one person, you get a whole team of people, and a lot of the business they're doing, they can do from Flagstaff, Tucson, Phoenix, wherever they're located, and then fly up here when they need to for one face-to-face meetings. And so he and I both would suggest that that's a way that we should look at doing that. Code compliance officer, we need a code compliance officer, but that person needs to be flexible in what they can do for the city. It can't just be code compliance, because there isn't enough work to keep somebody busy 40 hours a week in code compliance, in my opinion, from what I've seen so far. And so I believe that they should be very flexible in helping us with other things that we're doing, reviewing plans, maybe doing some approvals of small projects, things of that nature. So whoever comes to that position needs to have that kind of flexibility. Zoning code is something I've been spending a lot of time taking a look at here. Mike told me that that's one of the priorities, and one of the reasons that we didn't take the ordinance to hearings right after I arrived was so that I could spend some time with the ordinance, take a look at it, and bring a fresh set of eyes to it. So that's what I've been doing, and overall, I believe that the draft zoning ordinance is quality work. Because Mike was concerned of the quality of it, and I believe it is quality work. They've spent a lot of time working with the community. The consultant team that you had was a good, strong consultant team, and so overall, I believe it is very quality work. One of the questions I heard about it was the fact that it's larger. It's the existing zoning ordinance is about 100 pages. The new one's over 200 pages. And so the question was raised, is it making things more complicated? Is that just adding complication? And I don't believe so. There are many things that have been added to the zoning ordinance that really should have appeared in city codes but didn't appear anywhere. Things such as the general plan amendment process, which is required by law, and actually. Also, the duties of the Planning and Zoning Commission are two of the number of things that are included now in the zoning ordinance that weren't there before and help to add to the length of the zoning code. So based on direction from Mike, I again looked at ways that we could remove unnecessary roadblocks within the zoning ordinance. And so I have a number of suggestions, and I'll go through those briefly with you. Number one is adding more permitted uses and not requiring use permits or making them something that can't be done in the district. So these would be for specific land uses that can fit well into zoning categories and really don't need the protection of requiring a conditional use permit. And the value of a couple values of doing this, number one is that somebody can come in, purchase a piece of property, and do that with the certainty that they'll be able to build their land use. If we require them to go through a rezoning, require them to go through a conditional use permit, that provides uncertainty. And they're entering the political process, even if it just requires an approval of the Planning Commission. And so it helps if they can come in and know they don't have to go through that process, that they can go through site planning, go through building permitting, and be able to build their land use. And also would save about 3 to 4 months of not having to go through the process. So we're looking for those categories that can accommodate those uses, that are broad enough that those uses will fit in very well. And often what we've done with the zoning ordinance, and I understand from the consultant who worked on the zoning ordinance that the current zoning code required conditional use permits for a lot more uses than the proposed zoning code. And so what the consultant did was build in a lot of criteria that says, hey, if you meet these criteria, then you can go, then it's a permitted use. But these are the things you have to do in order to be able to build your land use within those areas. And that's a very, very good idea. Another thing that I'm suggesting is that we be able to process minor general plan amendments concurrently with rezones. We're able to do that now, and one of the things that the new zoning ordinance shows is that you have to go through the process first of amending the general plan, then come in and apply for rezoning. And a minor amendment of the general plan is something that doesn't have a large impact on the community. For example, we're looking right now at an RV park south of town part of the land that they want to use is zoned for future development. And so obviously they've got to change that to a category that allows current development. And so that is a minor amendment to our general plan. And if we were to go with not doing them concurrently, again, that would add 3 weeks to a month to the process. So we want to be able to do them concurrently. Another advantage of doing them concurrently is the fact that when you're amending the general plan, usually you don't get a lot of detail. I want to go from one plan category to the other plan category. If you're doing it concurrently with zoning, then you're getting that information, but you're also getting information about exactly what they want to do. You're talking about zoning, you're talking about site plans, you're looking at setbacks and amenities they want to provide. And so you get the whole ball of wax, the whole enchilada, all at the same time. And so for those reasons, I think it'd be better to be able to maintain what we're doing currently, and that is doing those concurrently. One of the concerns that Mike raised to me about our downtown area was the lack of parking. And so we wanted to look at parking standards and make sure that, and also that our parking standards seem to be a little bit too high. We have a lack of parking, but also in some circumstances our parking standards seem to be too high. I looked at the parking standards and I thought almost all of them were within the parameters that I've experienced in my career. The one major difference is in restaurants. When I took a sample 2,000 square foot restaurant and looked at the amount of area that typically is used for front of the house, the place that we go in and sit down to eat, versus back of the house where they have their kitchen and their storage, in that 2,000 foot restaurant, again, one I made up. Basically, if I did the calculations for Scottsdale, and I used the city of Scottsdale because I have experience, I spent 19 years in Scottsdale, but also I know how they've been through the ringer on their standards for restaurants. They have a lot of restaurants in Scottsdale, and and they want to make sure that they provide enough parking for the restaurants, but not too much parking for the restaurants. So when I did that, I found that city of Scottsdale in that imaginary 2,000 square foot restaurant would ask for 17 parking spaces. City of Page would ask for 24 parking spaces. And so my suggestion will be to go to Scottsdale standard, which is one space per 120 square feet gross floor area. And I'm saying gross floor area because right now our zoning ordinance talks about the area that's used just for the seating area, where the public goes, and basing your calculation on that. A lot of times we have people coming in to the city and they're not sure how big they want their kitchen to be. They're not sure how much storage area they want. They just want a good solid idea of how much parking they're going to need to provide in order to see if the numbers work, if they want to move forward with potentially buying the building or the parcel that they're looking at. So my suggestion would be to base it not on the area that's being dined in, but the entire floor area of the building.
But decrease that requirement.
Yes, that would decrease the requirement. That would bring it down to in line with what I showed here. So for a 2,000 square foot restaurant, again, we would then be equal to Scottsdale, so we would require 17 spaces, just as they would require.
Is this open for discussion, Mayor?
If you got a quote,
Yeah.
good.
My only comment about that, I think the CBD district is unique. It's uniquely challenged with space, and we need restaurants. So I think even this standard is going to be problematic for restaurant growth in the CBD. I think we have to be more flexible about where these 17 spaces come from, how far away from the building can they be across the street, can they be down the street? I think we have to open our minds on that because we really need restaurants and our parking is really scattered in the CBD.
That's a very, very good point. And one of the interesting aspects of the CBD zoning is the fact that it cuts your parking requirements in one half. So that means that in the CBD area, instead of the 17 spaces, you would have 9 spaces. 9 spaces. So yes, these are things that are designed to attract restaurants to downtown, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. We need restaurants in downtown, but we also need parking in downtown, and Mike and I are looking at ways to to help facilitate that. And one of the things I'm hoping will arise out of the visit of the folks from AICP, the American Institute of Certified Planners, in December, is that they will help us identify places where we can provide more parking. I think we have some opportunities to do that, and we'll talk more about that as time goes by, but that's a very, very good point.
Mayor, I may also add to that. Our current code requires all parking to be on-site, so there's no provisions for valet parking, there's no provisions for off-site parking at all. Under the draft code, the new code allows for off-site parking, so it does allow for the flexibility of valet parking or off-site parking, so that if you can't meet the standards on-site, it does provide for that flexibility.
Okay, thank you.
One of the things that I noticed a change from the existing zoning ordinance to the proposed zoning ordinance was the fact that today the Planning and Zoning Commission approves conditional use permits, that they don't come to the City Council, that the Planning Commission has the final word on those conditional use permits. My question when I saw that is, why should we add extra time to the process? If one of our goals is to streamline the process, to make the process as easy as possible, that would add another 2 to 4 weeks to the process. So our recommendation will be to stay with the current approach, and that is to have our Planning Commission actually approve conditional use permits. Another item that we identified here in the zoning ordinance was automatic reversions of conditional use permits. I understand from the consultant that this was a holdover from our wireless ordinance, that he really didn't look very much at the wireless ordinance, considering that it was pretty freshly done, it was pretty new. And one of the things that's in there, it talks about if a wireless facility, if it becomes abandoned, if it's not used for a period of time, then their conditional use permit would be automatically revoked. And that really doesn't dovetail very well with state law. State law basically says that if you want to revoke somebody's zoning, somebody's use permit, some kind of permission they've received from the city, that you have to take them back through the same process with which they were granted the approval. So in this case, it's the conditional use permit. They would go back to the Planning Commission, or staff would take it back to the Planning Commission and say, Commissioners, please revoke this use permit, it's not being used. It's not really that big a deal, because I've been working with wireless for 25 years, ever since it first came to Scottsdale. And I have yet to see somebody actually abandon a site. They'll move their antennas down, or they'll add new antennas to it, or they'll change a configuration, but they don't abandon them. Those sites are very, very precious. So I don't really think it's going to be an issue, but I wanted to clean that up and really dovetail better with state law in that circumstance. Okay, moving along then to second wave priorities. Those are all first wave priorities. Second wave, again, looking at other ways to remove unneeded roadblocks to approvals, working on a housing plan, downtown revitalization, and general plan updates. So we'll start with the unneeded roadblocks to approval. I'm going to be looking at processes, policies, and ordinances here in the city, and looking for ways that we can remove any roadblocks, that we can remove anything that's going to get in the way of somebody working to develop. You know, sometimes we do need a process that's a little bit slower, a little more deliberative, and I do understand that, but there are times when we don't, and those are things I would like to be able to find. Sometimes we do things because we've always done them that way. Everybody does that. It's not unique. Another question is, do we have to do it? In some circumstances, the state dictates what we can and can't do. And so that's one of the things we have to keep in mind. If the state says it has to be this way, we can't change it. And the last thing I'm going to be looking at along these lines is, does it add value? Is it really helping us? Is it really helping the community to take them through this process, or to ask them to do certain things? Maybe it's not. Some initial ideas to remove roadblocks. One of the things we're doing with the applicant for the RV ranch that I talked about, that's Boulder Ranch, is we're actually advertising in the newspaper for the Planning Commission and the council at the same time. So instead of advertising for Planning Commission first, then having the hearing, then advertising again for the City Council meeting, we're going to advertise once, we're going to put the dates in there, and we're going to ask people to pay attention to our website in case a case gets continued by the City Council. Then they'll know and then when the new hearing is going to be on the part of the city council. So it's really, the paper's a way to let people know, hey, there's something coming, and here's how you can keep track of what's going on, as opposed to actually needing to give them the exact date if there's a continuance involved. That will remove between 2 and 3 weeks, because it takes a long time to go through that process of getting the information to the paper, having them publish it, having us meet the state requirements for publishing time. That way we remove 2 or 3 weeks from the development process. The other thing we're going to be coming to the council to take a look at is removing the second reading that you have for ordinances. That's something I had not seen in the places I had worked. I heard about it in Tucson. When I worked with people in Tucson, they said, oh, we need a second reading. And I'm thinking, what is a second reading? And so, to me, having one hearing where everybody comes together, everybody knows it's the hearing, everybody comes together, presents all their information all in one time, all in one fell swoop, to me is the better approach to be able just to bring attention to that issue. And also to take a couple weeks out of the process, because now you have your first reading, then you have your second reading. So again, we're not making any decisions tonight, obviously, but that is one of the things that Mike and I would like to talk to the city council about potentially changing. Housing plan, I have the housing plan in my hands. I have yet had any time to review it. I'm going to review it, and because we have met with the representatives from Sullivan Project, they are very interested in helping us out, both in housing and they really left it open as to other ways they could help us as well. So Mike and I have spent some time already thinking about ways that we can ask Sullivan Project to help us out. Downtown revitalization, as I mentioned, we have the American Institute of Certified Planners coming to visit, and so I anticipate some good things out of it. I've looked at the resumes of the people who are coming out. They've got a lot of great experience, and my hope is that their recommendations to us will be a springboard for action into the future. General plan update. The state mandates a general plan update once every 10 years, but it doesn't necessarily mandate that you redo your general plan. It says that you need to either come in and do a new general plan or re-up your current general plan. And so that's one of the things that Mike and I are going to be taking a look at, whether we actually need to do any drastic changes to our general plan, or whether we can go back to the voters and say, hey, let's stand pat on the existing plan. In order to make any significant changes, we're pretty far behind the 8 ball at this point, because you basically need to get your plan locked in pretty much during the summertime. Early summers is what we did in Pinal County. So early summer, it was locked in to meet all the requirements that the state has for time frames, the groups that need to get together, the time between hearings, things of that nature, the ability, because the ability to send it back to the Planning Commission. If you want to change something, you need to remand it to the Planning Commission, and they need to send it to you. And so you need to build in all those time frames, because if you're doing that major 10-year update, it needs to be done all in the year that you started. So you started in 2009, everything needs to be finished within that year. So anyway, it's a very cumbersome process. And also with the city, the plan goes to a vote of the people. So it actually has to go to an election. And so there's a lot involved. And so that's one of the things we're going to be looking at, is whether we need to make significant changes, or whether at this point in time we need to update or do a re-up of our plan. Some progress we've been making in the past 3 weeks. Number one, we approved two conditional use permits. The Planning Commission approved them. We've issued permits to the Memorial Skate Park. It breaks ground October 3rd. Grandview Knoll Park, Gullyard Park Restroom, and the Senior Center parking lot. We're making good progress on Antelope Hotel and Hilton Home 2. And as I mentioned before, we're working on Boulder Ranch. And Boulder Ranch is a place where they would like to have SRPs, people who are working on decommissioning the Navajo generation station, living there in RVs while that work is taking place. So SRP is very interested in that moving forward as well, to have a place for their folks to live. Mayor, that's all I have for this evening. So look forward to any questions you may have.
Just one comment, Jerry. Back on the first wave priorities, when you're talking about overlapping functions to shorten the timeline, that's exactly I know that was my top priority for developers coming into Page, is making the process faster.
Good.
It seems like we were having to wait for this committee to meet and that committee to meet, and a lot of them met once a month, and it just took a long time to put everybody together. So overlapping those meetings as you're trying to do, I think is a good first step. Thank you.
sir.
A couple of things, Jerry. The planner position, as we move forward with that, I'd like to understand and identify what do we want to accomplish with that position. My understanding was that would facilitate much more internalization of a lot of our planning process and a lot of our development process, and I didn't see that happening. I'm just wondering, as we move forward, before we fill that and even advertise it, I'd like to see more in terms of what are we going to get out of this? Because that's a brand new position we never had before, and what I really saw was we brought on the position, and what they did was absorb work that would previously had been performed by other staff members rather than new work being performed. I didn't see any new outcome of anything, really. Maybe that wasn't enough time, but from my perspective, I'd like to get a good understanding of what is it we're out of? What are we getting out of this position, and what's a reasonable time frame for that to happen? Secondly, on the code compliance, I think Mike brought this up a little earlier. I'm not sure I agree with the perception that we don't have enough work for a code compliance officer, because I don't think we've executed nearly what we thought we were going to try to accomplish within the time that we had a code compliance officer. I still see just hundreds of examples of derelict property that doesn't fit the code that we have adopted. So whether it's not effective or whether we weren't addressing those issues, I don't know, but before we distract from the task of what we really wanted to do in our goal of neighborhood cleanup and property improvements and stuff, I'd be a little reluctant in trying to multitask that position until we get caught up with what our goals were initially.
Good. This is the kind of feedback we need. I appreciate it.
Mayor, Councilman, thank you, because this is the whole purpose of the discussion, is to get this feedback. And there's history, obviously, that we're missing. So it's good to connect and to hear what maybe all the potential of the positions could be. So Jerry and I will take a look at those and put those derelict properties, for example, and see a little bit more how we can flush this out a little bit cleaner. Thank you.
I would add to that, if you're looking at multitasking that position, especially if you're looking at having them involved with any kind of planning or approvals or anything like that, I would caution against that, just because that could carry a perception of, a conflict of interest to me. So I would
understand.
just be cautious of that.
I should have prefaced, though, I really like the approach you're taking in terms of simplification and streamlining and all of those things that you brought out, the adding more permitted uses within our new zoning code, providing a process to update the general plan. Those are great, innovative. Those are great suggestions, and I hope we move forward with your recommendations. I think that'll help us out a lot.
Thank you, sir.
Anyone else? Okay. Jerry, thank you.
Thank you.
Discussion and possible action by City Council pertaining to professional services agreement for an interim community development director. Mike.
Yes, this I would like to see, to continue the interim of the Community Development Director. I had to bring it forward because this exceeds my threshold of authorization, and for the next couple of months to keep Mr. Stapley on board in the interim.
Discussion? I'll entertain a motion.
A motion to approve the contract for interim community development director.
We have a motion and a second. Any further question or discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously of those members present. Okay. Discussion and possible action by City Council pertaining to the preliminary and/or final plat for major subdivision Lot 5 and 4A and Track E of Block 272, SPR 19-3. Jerry.
Mr. Mayor, I'm here for any questions you may have about this item.
Okay, this is a part of this moving things concurrently, is that correct?
Yes, as a matter of fact, it is.
Good.
The difference between the two motions or what?
We need both motions.
Oh, yeah, one's for preliminary plat approval and one's for final plat approval, so we're doing those concurrently.
Well, that's where the concurrent comes in there.
Yeah. And this is necessary to create the parcel that we're selling to Alliant. Yeah, so once we approve the plat, then we can have a deed to grant to them.
Okay. So, any further questions? Okay. I'll move, based on the findings noted in the staff report, I move to approve the preliminary plat for the major subdivision plat for lots 5 and 4A and Track E of Block 272 of the Page Town site, subject to the following: that Alliant Gas provide adequate financial assurance that the road improvements will be made to the city street, and 2, that the final deed is provided for review. A motion and a second. Further question or discussion? Call for the question. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, likewise? Motion carries unanimously, those members present. We have a second motion that we're interested in. I'd entertain.
I'll make that up. Based on the findings noted in the staff report, I move to approve the final plat of the major subdivision plat for lots 5 and 4A and Tract E of Block 272 of the Page Town site, subject to the conditions outlined for preliminary plat approval.
We have a motion and multiple second. Any further question or discussion? Seeing none, call for the question. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you, Jerry. Discussion and possible act by City Council pertaining to investment options for LGIP. Linda.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Before you tonight is an opportunity for you. Per ordinance 632-17, the City of Page has been transferring 85% of 1% of our transaction privilege tax into an account currently held in the LGIP, Local Government Investment Pool, for the purpose of paying off our 2011 series bond at the first call date in July of 2021. Today, this account balance is in excess of $7.6 million. Next month, we were going to make the transfer in for this fiscal year of $2.968 million, which will bring that account balance up to approximately, well, over $10.5 million. The purpose of this request tonight is to ask if the City Council has any interest in having any portion of that $10.5 million balance that's held and reserved held in reserve invested into the U.S. government agency bond that we could get a higher interest rate. Currently with the company that we work with, TVI, that has that other $6 million that you invested a few years back. So it's the same company. We were just throwing it out there to see if there was any interest for you. It had discussion with the city manager. We felt that we would bring it before you to see if you had any interest in doing that. Provided you with a breakout of what we're currently in the LGIP Pool 7, what we're currently earning, 2 different scenarios for your, we just picked numbers, 3 million, 5 million, it can be anything or nothing. But it shows basically what the current yields are and what the potential yields could be if we did make an investment.
I have a question. You may not have an answer, but why is the fee significantly lower than a bond? I mean, that they've got a lot more buying power, and they should be able to invest. Did you, as you researched that, did you find out why that was?
I did not.
Okay.
The LGIP, the Pool 7 is the most conservative with the State Treasury's office, so that's currently where we have our funds, and all of our accounts with the LGIP are currently invested in that Pool 7. They do have 3 other pools, one of which is Pool 5, a little bit more aggressive. I would not recommend the other 2 pools that they have at this point. These funds that we're talking about investing, if it was the pleasure of the council, would only be for the period of less than 2 years. They would get invested here shortly, whenever you would like, and then the call date would be planned for May of 2021 to have those funds and open so that we can make that final bond payoff in June of 2021 for our call date of July. So we'll make the payment in June, they'll hold the funds on July 1st. So that way we'll clear it up and clean it up in fiscal year 2021 instead of carrying it over.
So all we're giving up is liquidity, right?
That's correct.
Well, but we gain, we could gain up to about $55,000.
This is a secure,
It is.
so I guess my question is, why wouldn't we have a payoff balance of 2021 of 5.1 million.
Correct.
Why wouldn't we?
We can.
Because we've pledged that to be paid, and we're certainly not going to touch it. If it's secure, why wouldn't we just, put the balance that we are going to owe in July 2021 in a bond and get the additional interest? We're going to save $800,000 already just because we're paying the bond off sooner.
So why not put $7 million?
Yeah, well, good question.
I mean, that's the question, right? I mean, I understand that the bond, the call amount is that $5 million.
because-
But are we concerned as a council on having those funds available and liquid in a sense, not tied up in a bond?
We still have principal and interest payments each year up to July 2021, which is why the balance has to be 7.6 million rather than 5.1 million. 5.1 million is the net principal due on the earliest call date.
Okay.
But we have 2 more years of $1.2+ million interest and principal payments to make, so,
Correct.
yeah.
Well, I would agree with you. It's a no-brainer to me. If it's secure, we have to.
Authorize the finance director to move forward breaking investment option discussed tonight in the amount of $5 million even, or is there?
Your choice.
Well, we could make it 6 million. I think we're going to have a surplus because it's going to be a little bit of a lag time between the allocation of the 85% or 1%, the point of time when we revisit that ordinance because of the sunset clause. So you could put 6 million in there and you'd have change.
I think you should do it.
In the amount of $6 million. They don't have to round it up.
We have a motion and we have a second for $6 million. Any question or
I just have a,
discussion?
are we concerned about, I'm just of things that may be around the corner that we may, big ticket items, we got Horseshoe Bend and some other things. Are we liquid enough if we have some flexibility on potential big ticket items?
Can't use
Well,
that
This
money for
money is
anything
already
else
set
anyway.
aside for the bond debt period anyway. We're just, whether or not we're going to get 1.7%, or if we're going to get 2.8.
So this wouldn't be like a contingency.
Yeah, this is,
Take out.
these are to the debt payment only.
Okay.
Any further question or discussion? Call for the question. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Thanks, Linda.
Motion carries unanimously. Those members present. Discussion possible action by city to the permitted vehicle lot on city property.
Mayor Dyak, members of the council, the agenda item is more for on what we're going to do with this corner spot that we've making some options as we move forward to the construction phase of Horseshoe Bend and providing a shuttle service and looking at locations to provide the shuttle service. And the corner on Navajo Street has been something that would be viable as it's an attached possible restaurants, drop-offs, pickups, things like that. Wanted to get the council's feedback as to, is this the type of a business that we want to continue and service that we want to continue for these type of selling vehicles, RVs, boats, and wanted to see what the council's thoughts were on or expanding.
Move we get out of the used cars.
Well,
A couple comments I have.
you go ahead, you can probably cover them, so go ahead.
Maybe I should let you talk first.
I'll go.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I'm in favor of having an area within the city where we can have items for sale like that, like vehicles, boats, travel trailers, and everything else. And the reason behind that, I have a couple. One of the reasons is that I think it is an asset to the community. If you have a spot for it, then that blight that you're seeing in the neighborhood just continues, and everything's got to in the home areas and in the residential districts. And the reason was, I think that if we don't do that, then every vacant lot is going to have cars sitting on it. So rather than, somebody's got a vacant lot next to their house, whether they own it or not, they're going to have cars sitting on it. Area where you have some control over it, it's permitted, like we do now. It's there for 2 weeks. You either got to come renew it or whatever. And if it's a derelict property, like we had the guy over here with the airplane, you know, control over what's out there. That's the behind it. So, question.
But it's not going to end place, but if we are going to have it somewhere, we certainly don't want it over there on the entrance to Page. It needs to be somewhere like down by the corrals or somewhere out of the way.
Well, I think you brought up, those are all the concerns. My first reaction is, do we want to be in the used car business? No, but I agree with you that there's going to be repercussions. I don't like that space. I certainly don't agree with the location, particularly, in light of the fact that we have a neighbor who's done so good of improving their property. What a disservice to put a bunch of old rundown RV street. We're trying to, enhance our community, and 5 steps backwards by a lot like that. Furthermore, a real problem in the sense that if I were a businessman and I was of a notion to take some vacant property, service commercial, turn it around to make $20 permit for your RV for a week and up for sale, I certainly would have to do more than just blade off a piece of dirt and put some concrete barriers there. I would probably be required to landscape my setback, provide an ingress, egress, a variety of developmental challenges beyond just, there it is, park your vehicles. I just think we've got to make a step forward and instead of going backwards. Do it. It either needs to be location, that maybe it's already developed, that we put a corner and do that. I don't want to end up with this gentleman in the audience. It would for him. I mean, he always has a challenge. We as a community got into the corral business. It was got into us. People had some animals, they needed a place, and they said, well, put it. And so what we had was a bunch of makeshift shanty corrals made out of leftover plywood and pallets, and that lasted for 10, 15. And then the town grew up to that and said, well, that's not appropriate anymore. When are you going to move? So we have to move you. And we really never took the look at, are we going to create an equestrian facility with good amenities, roads, and do it right, or moving these guys around? Well, this is the same. And so maybe we can designate a city property parking lot that's already paved, like maybe down at the sports complex, and try it for 12 months and then give. Eventually, we should not be in that business. We should have our zoning, but I think really good.
Is there anything against, say, like, Page Steel or Page Lumber or whatever, set aside a lot of parking lot, and yeah, you can park a vehicle? Is our code preventing that currently?
I can't answer that, Councilmember, at this time. Jerry?
Yeah, off the top, I don't know. I'd have to look into that and see whether that's possible. But I'd have to look at that.
Yeah, to be a permitted use.
Right. Past, for example, a car dealer and did that at Page Lumber. They were required to get a permit until they could get a temporary permit until they could get a permit to. So I wasn't involved in it. Community development kind of handled that, but I do know from that perspective, if you want to put a used car sale on the weekend out there was some permit that they were required to get to do it temporarily. They needed some other permit or special permission to do that, some action that they needed to take to do that.
And we're not in competition with car sales either. We don't need to be out front and stuff. We don't have to be paid. We don't have to be making it a bureau. If we want it to go away, we don't want to improve on it.
Vice Mayor.
Yeah, I think that really think about
The question?
what we're doing here. This goes against everything that we're trying to create in our zoning code.
We've got a second down at this end on my did I put it in the form of a motion?
Vice Mayor.
Oh, Vice Mayor.
To get out of the.
Was that a motion?
Did you make a motion?
Unfortunately, I did.
That was the first
It needs some tweak.
Around to it, I think you guys.
And I could change, say when, like, within the next 2 years. All this will be done with it.
We need to get it.
The reason that this came up was because of another high priority for the construction of Horseshoe Bend. because we know that we're going to have a huge parking lot issue out there November. What was the original need of this happening? And I think it kind of some discussion about where that might be, and there was it's paved, it's good parking, and it'll allow for those there to also be in a town area where they might take use of the amenities.
Down there, even without,
what do you want? A beer?
even without Horseshoe Bend, that parking lot's stacked now. And there's certain days of the week that the and vehicles that are there for sale
Impeding with the business.
impeding on customers that are parking downtown lunch or dinner. That parking lot's full, and it's got, a lot of RV
That
traffic
west-
there, and I think that
That west end is not necessarily, or south end, I guess.
I went to State 48. I couldn't find a parking spot hardly. It was full. And that's because there were 20 units for sale, big ones. But every other was
In the last 3 weeks since we removed the permits, people have been utilizing the lot a lot more.
well, and I think
I think that's, trying to,
thing we need to think about is,
something, think moving forward.
if we're going to develop downtown, and we're going to look at a revitalization plan, and we're going to provide public parking, then we need to provide signage, recognized that parking for our visitors who come and squeezed, they're being squeezed out.
There's a lot of tour
Well, it's,
trucks parked in the way too.
Exactly, and so we need to bite the bullet and really down the can. You have some good reasoning why we might want to mitigate things, but really just kicking it down the can won't ultimately solve the problem. The problem is we can't be in that business. I don't know any other community that provides that. And it's in conflict with what we're requiring. If I were to come in and say, I see property, I want to take, it's vacant, I support.
Before we do, I just want to, because you brought it up and it plays part, we're discussing right now, that we kind of feel like we need to get out of the, put in a place for you to sell your used vehicle. But then the flip side of that is, okay, so are we entertaining then, are we doing that because we want to get out of it, or is that because we want to entertain parking for Horseshoe Bend? Because if you say there's already parking that's displacing State 48 and local businesses, when you put another 100 cars that are at Horseshoe Bend, they're displacing those same customers. But they might be the same
I
customers.
made the motion because we just got in the business in the last few years. Didn't have to have it before. Don't need it now.
I'm just saying, because
Well, I think those are the same customers. If I'm going to have a shuttle from Horseshoe Bend, even if it's temporary, where better than to put those people when they come back from Horseshoe Bend than right in front of restaurants?
Right, I agree. I just had some people that text me and contacted me, and they were fearful that if you were to do that parking is going to not be enough. That it'll push into the hospital parking lot, push into the bank parking lot.
after Mike's through, I'm going to call for the question.
I'm just throwing that out. There's people in our community that are concerned about that, and we probably need to address that as well.
I guess we can talk, okay.
Go for it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor of the motion to get out of the car business, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Aye.
Aye. Counselor Caput?
Nay.
Mayor Diak?
Nay.
Counselor
Is it nay under the current situation?
Nay.
Counselor Warner?
Aye.
Aye.
I would like to say, though, I mean, I support having a place, a corral for vehicles to be sold, but I don't support someone putting a flatbed with washing machines on it or something else to be sold.
How can you
Well, the
define that?
motion-
I mean,
The motion failed,
yeah.
so here's where we're at. We're either back to the drawing board for both interim parking and the car sales.
No, there's just one discussion.
Okay, well,
Nothing to do with
then
the interim parking.
interim parking.
That's not on here.
So what city manager's looking for is direction
Background
from
in
us.
preparation planning
Oh.
for the possible shuttle services for the
Probably should've read
construction of phase
Rest of the paper.
Horseshoe Bend. I think it was mentioned in there. So that leaves us at further discussion on the item possibly, because the motion that we came up gave us no direction on either. So it's,
I would like to see us do a work session on just this. I mean, I don't like tons of work sessions, it's a lot of time, but this is one, I'm not against the motion to get out of the business, I think we have to have a better plan, some more ideas brought to the table.
Well, what better plan? Are you in it or are you out? Because like Levi said, if you're in it, how are you going to define whether an RV is operable, non-operable? How are you going to define if someone drives up with a trailer full of leftover old appliances? How are you going to control that? I mean, are you going to be a flea market? Is that what we're promoting here? Is we're a flea market? Maybe we just do it on Saturdays? This is a crazy notion in my mind.
But it's been happening for, well, what, the last 3-4 years?
We're putting way too much thought into this.
10.
This
10
shouldn't take
years?
this much.
And I don't go down, there's not like a flea market, it's not like a junkyard, I mean, I'm just,
Mine doesn't say anything about.
I just don't see us, I just don't have, I need to think about more about it before I want to say, yeah, let's just get out of it, because there's some valid points to it.
Yeah, my issue is the location, so, this just doesn't work, but,
See, and I started to put a time limit on my motion, but we got lost.
okay. It appears that we kind of got a general consensus from council that we'd like to revisit this. I will state to council that the clock is ticking. We're getting closer, and our executive session this evening might shed a little bit more light on some of that. So,
Can we at least throw out an idea that staff suspend all new permits?
we already have.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
As of September, at the end of September, there's no permits being reissued. Any permit that there's no permits being issued now. Anything that over there has to be removed by the end of the month.
okay, now can we also
Start noticing people
agree that the proposed location is not a suitable alternative? And can we
Yeah.
direct staff not to proceed with any development of that property and remove what's been put there?
Actually, it looks a lot
Yeah,
nicer.
with the-
Looks a lot nicer than it's looked in the past.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I guess what I'm asking for is to agree that that's not a suitable location no matter what. That if we're going to have this service, it's not going to be there.
I can agree with that.
So, okay, if somebody had a lot and would entertain taking over the permitting process and maybe some conditions about what can be there and stuff like that on their private property, and if they wanted to charge $5 for a permit, would council have any interest in that?
I think that would be a great solution.
I don't
Well, I don't know. I have one. I know.
I'd rather we
I know where
direct
there's a
staff.
gravel lot, that's kind of in an appropriate area, but it is owned by somebody else, but they might want to make some money because they're for nonprofit organization, and it might help them make some money on the side. But it would have to, and by the way, it is permitted for cars. Happen to know that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that there's provisions in our zoning code for used car lots, and, I mean, they would have to meet the provisions of the code, or we'd have to change the code.
I did visit the new draft ordinance just because I thought that going forward, we're probably looking at that ordinance as a model. I didn't go back to our existing code, but to do what, it's a permitted use in service commercial, new and used car sales, but there's development standards that apply, just like if you were going to put in a Mercedes-Benz dealership. I mean, you just don't go throw gravel on the ground and don't do any improvement and call it good.
They'd have to have all the insurance requirements and,
Well, you'd have to,
price it right out of the market.
you've got setbacks, you've got screening, you've got a lot of issues that need to be dealt with developmentally.
How about we bring it back with some more parking lot options?
Right, the
City-owned
look for some more
properties.
options too, because we push it off on private enterprise, then it's gonna end up on some more frontage property. It's the only thing that's got this paved around here, you know, like somewhere where you don't want that going on. To me, the ideal place would be like behind the corrals or something like that.
Industrial park or something.
If we're gonna move forward without any, I guess, more action or any more specific, just so I think we understand, right now, the path that we're on is to, at the end of September, it will cease being able to use the corner where they're located now. No permits will be issued for October. The first work session will be, a week and a half into October, so there will be, just so council, I guess where staff, what I'm understanding, and I don't know if Mike's getting different messages, that there will be no car lot until the city has further meetings and potentially a work session in October to discuss this, but as of the end of September, it will be shut off. There will be no city lots. Unless staff gets direction to go a different way, because I think the mayor said, no more new permits, and the current permits expire at the end of September.
That's what we had, staff had been doing.
Yeah, I think that's the direction that, has been initiated, was that at the end of September, we would no longer allow any cars to park over there. If council would like staff to just continue that until council gives further direction, then staff can do that, but the path right now is to terminate everything at the end of September.
Council have a comment?
Unless you can come up with a suitable alternative, I don't know.
My
Kind of accomplishes his motion.
Yeah, I know, that's exactly my beef, is that, okay, so we're just gonna passively aggressive shut it down, and I'm not for that. The reason, this is just my opinion, I'm not a big fan of it, but I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. The reason I'm for moving it is because we have an alternative purpose. We have a better option. We have a better plan, which is to use it for parking for Horseshoe Bend. That helps the Horseshoe Bend, helps drive the economy in our downtown area. I like the fact that, yeah, you can go down and sell that car, put something on there. It's not terrible. It's not the best, but it's not the worst. And if we could move that somewhere else, I'm not totally opposed to that. And I'm sure a lot of people in our community aren't opposed to that.
And the permitting process
And more of the people would sell them to that dealer that we're competing with, and it'd be gone.
That dealer you think you're competing with went out of business. That was the place I was thinking about.
So those are just my thoughts. I'm
Car
for,
sales closed. Haven't you noticed it's vacant there?
I just talked to him today.
Pardon?
I just talked to him today.
They're at 98
Oh,
and...
he moved.
Oh, he moved.
Yeah, he's down
Down the
at
hill.
Easy Street on pavement.
Oh, okay.
It's got all looking good. He didn't want to buy my car, but I asked him if he's interested in taking one inside me and stuff, and he didn't really like the fact that we were competing against him.
Yeah, and I mean, even worse than that, we're competing against him with standards that are lower than what we'd require him to do. That's not something I think I could support.
Yeah, I understand that.
Last question, how much time does council want to spend on this item tonight?
Yeah.
0.
About 30 minutes ago.
I say we let it go because it basically is going to be suspended no matter, unless we want to bring it back and have further discussion on a later date.
All right.
I just think we need an alternate location to talk about.
I guess it stands
I
to,
have to bring back alternate locations.
Are you willing to invest money and to develop it to the level of standard that you would require a private person to do?
We don't have to.
But
should, but we
morally
don't
you do. Are you willing to take money out of the budget to provide this service for the community? Pave a parking lot, put in screening, put in the setbacks, do the development standards. Is that a business you want to get into?
so,
Because we didn't get in this business, it got into us.
to do that, where it's at right now, and have those permits, came from then Mayor Lyle Dimbat, and it was
He had
called,
something to sell.
and it was a decision of council. It just did not happen. It was a decision made of council. I don't know if it was, since it was 10 or 11 years ago, I don't know if it was unanimous or not, but it was at least 4 people said, yeah, we ought to do that.
It came about because everyone was parking in Safeway's parking lot on Lake Powell Boulevard, and then
Yes,
that
they were. And that's
private business said, no, we don't want you doing that here, finally.
That's exactly,
Citizens came to the council and said,
that's exactly what I brought up was going to happen. But, you know,
Well, yeah, I agree with you, Dugan. I do. I just,
so, let's see if we can come up with another suitable location, and then we can vet that, and I think we'll probably come to another vote, and we can either have it yay or nay. Make that decision.
just
But I
the fact,
think
you know,
the location is a concern, at least,
Yeah.
or it may have passed the
I mean, just the fact that, anytime you drive by that, there's several things for sale in there, tells me there's demand for it. The community likes it. There's a need there, or there's a use there. I think we need to visit alternate locations, see if we can find something that we can split the needle with, just personally.
Mayor, council, I still am not real clear. I understand what we're moving forward here on this, but as far as the actual permits, are we ceasing or are we continuing?
when are we starting construction?
November 1st is the slated scheduled date. Startup anyways.
Is this something that you've experienced other communities providing that? Jerry, can you share any knowledge with your experience? And how they've handled this?
No, I have not. I have not seen this in other communities.
well, you weren't any help.
Well, because I'm trying to think in my mind of all the communities I go to, if I've ever seen something like this, I haven't. All the communities that I'm familiar with and I've worked in, I don't know of one that I've ever been to or seen that. Kyle, do you know?
County of Los Alamos, New Mexico has what we term a lemon lot. It is exactly what you would hope. It's a paved lot with signage, permits allowed. It's on a corner, but it is county-owned property that they provide that service. But it is improved like you would desire. It's not a dirt lot with gravel. So that's only one example I could think
Sort of like a,
it was pointed out to me.
A weekend swap meet deal.
It's a little bit better than that. It is a parking lot. It is on a main thoroughfare, asphalt, painted, striped, signed, with the permit requirements. And you are required to get a permit from the county offices to have it there. It is next to a church and next to the high school stadium parking lot. So It's a high-profile area, yes.
It was pointed out to me that also the city of Kanab has that along the main highway of 89.
Well, then, if we're going to go this way, and we have surplus parking at the sports complex, I think if we're going to do that, do we charge a fee now for a permit?
No.
No.
It should be a fee. And then you're going to get the true people who want to sell something. There should be we charge a fee for just about any other use of city property. So if I want to put my boat down there I want to sell, $25 fee or something like that should be, if we're going to do it, let's at least not be in competition with the guy that's trying to do it as a business. I can see why there's demand if it's free. If it's free, it's great.
Yeah, and just because other cities don't do it, that's a nice thing. I've used it.
Plan on selling it, probably just using it for parking space.
Explain why something.
All right, well, we had discussion, we had a motion, it was defeated, and I think that we've got enough discussion going on here that at least let's ask staff to look at a different location for the possible continuation of this. I don't think we want to go back upstream, so as long as we have the permits at this time no longer being issued, keep that September end date and go from there. Can I have a consensus on that? I'm not trying to make a decision.
Yeah,
We're getting nowhere.
Direction, that's
Yeah, we'll have no permits and then in October, and if the community wants it, they'll come out and let us know.
And we can formally adopt a plan that encompasses fees and appropriate improvements, and if there's something that is worthy of paying money, we'll pay money maybe.
Understand.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, council. They're going to bring some information back, possible other locations. Bid awards, discussion, possible action by city council pertaining to award of bid for John C. Page Memorial Park improvements. Kyle.
Good evening, Mayor Dyak and members of the council. Technology caught up to me here. So during the November 9th, 2016 Page City Council meeting, the City Council adopted the John C. Page Memorial Park Master Plan. The John C. Page Memorial Park Master Plan, or the plan, is designed to provide a central gathering place for the Page residents and visitors and to be a point of pride for the City of Page. The plan has provided a framework for park and open space planning moving forward and has assisted city staff and the City Council in planning for the maintenance and improvements of existing parks and open spaces and development of future parks and open spaces. The plan guided staff to ensure that the parks and associated facilities continue to contribute to the quality of life in Page, including the major features listed in the John C. Page Memorial Park Master Plan. It does include a revitalized skate park, which we have a contractor for working on that, an enhanced pedestrian crossing, and additional parking in the community center. The City Council recently approved the construction services for the skate park, and furthering on, this plan has been developed with Peak Engineering, the Community Development Department in conjunction with Peak Engineering and the City of Page Public Works Department. We've put together a plan. It went out to bid for the required 2-week period. We received 3 qualifying bids for that project. Those bids were due on Monday, this past Monday, the 24th at 4:30 p.m. You should have received, I believe in your handout, the most recent bid tabulation for those bids. So at this time, staff would make the recommendation to award the John C. Page Memorial Park Improvements bid to J&J Engineering Construction of Hilldale, Utah, for the amount of $849,167.20.
Discussion. Where'd the budget come in on that?
We have a budget of $863,000 for this project. So this bid comes just under that budget. Included in the budget schedule for the project, we do have just under $200,000 in allowances. If there are some changes in subgrade or other things like that, we do have a little wiggle room in that project to accommodate any slight changes.
So $200,000 contingency was part of the base.
$40,000 was part of the base bid, with an additional $160,000 for the bid add alternates. And as you
So are you recommending we include the bid alternates or not?
I do, based on the fact that they come in under our anticipated budget. The base bid, if you recall, was primarily for the parking lot at the community center. Bid alternate 1 includes the pedestrian access, the sidewalks through the park. Now, I do want to put to the council perhaps on the bid alternates 2, 3, and 4. It does include colored concrete. At the time that these were put together, there was discussion about having colored concrete in there. If that's still the desire of the council, then I'd recommend those to go in there. If it is not, we certainly can remove those and save a portion of that money.
I say match the sidewalk at the street.
And it'll be gray concrete now.
Question I had asked a long time ago was for because the design showed for a lot of foliage and stuff in there, and I was told that we would see a landscape plan. I don't recall ever seeing that. And it's kind of late in the game at this particular time. So because we had asked for that we would have a lot of open space. Previous people working on this project seemed to like a lot of trees and bushes. I know the chief over here doesn't like a lot of trees and bushes, and neither does the fire department. And I think council has a affirmation to keep that space with a lot of open space so that it can be utilized for multi-type events. And
this current design has no additional shrubs or trees included in it. It's going to leave the existing trees with the removal of one of the tall cottonwoods on the northwest end of the parking lot will be removed for vehicle access. So we're not seeing any additional
I'm not opposed to any trees that are in the boundaries and stuff like that, but there was trees and stuff that would, from the kind of the design thing that we got, that were filling the center portion of that, which wouldn't allow for some types of events.
Well, this is primarily just a sidewalk.
Yeah.
That's all this is. But keep in mind, Parks Board is going to be reviewing that second phase of the development, and it does include shade.
Yeah.
Which is a tree. But that's not in this job.
Yeah. But, as long as it would be counterintuitive to put a picnic table in the middle of that park with a
Without shade.
tree.
I would,
the way we've kind of got it designed is the shade around the borders and stuff and the picnic tables. That seems to allow for multi-type events, car shows, water cannons, 4th of July from the fire department with kids running and playing and stuff like that. The environment I would like to see would continue those type of things.
we're going to have to debate that on the next phase. That's not on this phase.
Okay. Then I'll start preparing for the next phase.
Mr. Mayor, I move to award the bid to John C. Page Memorial Park improvements to J&J Engineering Construction, Hilldale, Utah, in the amount of $849,167. Is that 20 cents? And authorize the mayor to sign the contract.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Further question or discussion? If you like, call for the question. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously of council. Okay. All right.
Could I ask one clarification on that? we did approve the total bid. That total bid included the add alternate 3, 2, 3, and 4, which was the colored concrete.
Okay.
If there's a discussion not to include that, we should make sure that's not included. So I
As-
just want to make sure that gets clarified before I sit down.
Okay, yeah.
I don't need.
I'd
I
comment-
don't need colored concrete. I don't need colored concrete.
Anyone desiring colored concrete?
I'm looking at a $45,000 roughly
Yeah, roughly
Savings.
$45,000
color.
increase the overall.
Is this for the primary walkway that circulates through the,
It actually includes, for the sidewalk, the single curb, driveway entrances, colored concrete for the light pole bases. It's basically adding color to all those items. And I will exclude, because let me back up. Item 3 is gas line sleeves, but we've discussed with Alliant Gas that they will provide those, so we do not need to pay for those. That came out today. So if we eliminate all 3 of those, it's the actual color additive to that concrete plus those gas sleeves. So we're talking, just as Councilman Warner mentioned, it's about a $45,000 savings.
Save the money.
it's $45,000 to color the concrete?
Well, I see the way the color of our sidewalks are right now, that we spend a lot of money on right now. And they're gonna be either gray or black eventually.
Got all my problem, I don't care.
How were you going to determine the color tone?
We have a standard tone, and I apologize, I don't know what the exact color is. It's like a Cimarron pink. We have an established color tone that is used by our local batch plant that establishes that color.
Is this going to be connecting to this is going to be connecting to the skate park?
It'll connect to the skate park, which will provide connection to 6th Avenue. Then we do have a leg of the sidewalk that goes to Lake Powell Boulevard, which intersects kind of at the entrance of the Safeway Shopping Center. And then it also connects at 2 points along South Navajo.
And everything it connects to is currently uncolored, correct?
One location, the one at Safeway, is the only pink location we have. The other 3 locations are gray.
Okay, save the money.
I don't need pink concrete, I don't know.
Color they use nowadays ain't worth it anyway.
Concrete.
Doesn't last.
Direction to exclude the colored concrete in the sleeves. Thank you.
Thank you.
Did I hear that right? Not to include the colors?
Not to include.
Right.
He said exclude.
Yep.
Darby. Business from the mayor, discussion possible action, city council pertaining to rescheduling the October 24th, 2018, the regular city council meeting. That is the 24th, 25th is the ADOT Rural Transportation meeting, where they talk about their 5 and 25-year plans. And Mike and I were going to be out of town on the 24th and the 25th, so I'm asking if we might be able to reschedule that to the Monday. Is that correct, Kim? Which would be the 24th. Oh, excuse me.
22nd.
Yeah, to the 22nd, I'm sorry. That would be moving it from Wednesday to Monday. Entertain any question or discussion.
You can do that. I will not be there. I don't have previous engagement.
I wouldn't be there either. I'm going to be in Flagstaff that day.
So that's a quorum remains, the rest of us available?
I'm good.
Okay. All right. I'd entertain a motion. Someone give me a motion, and I will make it.
I move to reschedule October 24th, regular council meeting to October 22nd.
Second?
Second.
We have a motion, a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously, those members present. Thank you, gentlemen. Business from the manager, we have none scheduled this evening. Business from the attorney, none scheduled. We have executive session and we have boards and commissions. I'd like to go to boards and commissions. Does anyone have anything, a board liaison report they'd like to make this evening? Okay, I'll make one brief one. The Substance Abuse Task Force Board met a week ago, Wednesday or Monday, and out of that, there had been some concern about funding and how it was dwindling, coming to the Substance Abuse Task Force. After a couple conversations with the magistrate court and stuff that I'd had with the judge, Christie, in accounting, being the diligent person she is, started looking back at records, and she saw that we were not receiving payments. And it seems like that when there was a change in the administrative office over there, that there was no training involved with how to do that. So we've caught back up. We are catching back up with that. That funding will start coming back out of the court system, and they're now going back and looking at it retroactively. Okay, so the funding will be coming to the Substance Abuse Task Force.
Where was it going?
It wasn't being collected. It was just going into the regular fines, where there's a percentage of those fines that are set aside to go to Substance Abuse Task Force, and it was never coming across. So
The fines were being collected.
yes,
So
but the share
Wasn't coming
was not
back.
being distributed. Okay,
the money went into general fund.
I don't know if it goes into a different fund.
No, actually, the way the Arizona revised statute is written is that they needed to charge an additional 10% penalty for drug-related fines, and that was not being done. So the monies were not actually being collected, but we've gone back, where we've asked the court to do pull reports to see if they can get some actual numbers. I've done a preliminary guesstimate on average, and it looks like it's around $8,000, $8,500 that should have gone to the Substance Abuse Task Force. So we are meeting next week to try to have more conversation about that, see what reports they can provide for us, and make a decision to move forward to rectify that.
The other item that the Substance Abuse Task Force said, well, how come you didn't stand up and give a report?
You didn't ask me.
You want to go ahead and finish that?
Sure.
Your last report, possibly.
Very good, very likely. Yeah, Larry Clark, Chairman of the Substance Abuse Task Force. At our last task force meeting, we have one member who has not attended for some time and is going to be asked if she plans to continue to attend, and we do not think that she will. Would reduce this by one person. There was a surprise resignation last Wednesday. The vice president resigned for whatever reason. I have no idea. She didn't explain it, just she's resigning from it, which cuts off our tie to the school at this time. She was a school employee, not functioning in that position, but give us information on the school stuff and brought up a lot of things. The other one is I'm resigning also. I'm just staying on until I leave so that there can be a quorum, because right now, with me staying on, there are 3. So in a month, there's going to be 2 there. So behoove anybody who knows somebody who wants to be on the Page Substance Abuse Task Force, there are plenty of open slots. And we have other things going too. There are some neat things coming from Bunny Cochran. Bunny has all kinds of contacts on this type of thing. She brought up, I think, 6 items last meeting, where a lot of neat things out there going on that Page Substance Abuse Task Force needs to be paying attention to. But sorry to say, I'm not going to be there to help out with it. So, any questions?
They are also looking at doing a $500 scholarship to anyone who wants to enter the field of substance abuse counseling. And that was...
And we are supporting Red Ribbon.
Red Ribbon Week.
For the tune of $500 for items to be given out basically at the high school for anybody who comes to the stand that they'll have set up, and it'll still be the person who was on our task force should be doing it, I guess, for the school. They'll hand out some type of thing. Last year it was drink cups, but you also had to sign a pledge. And there'll be something similar to that with the $500 spent this year. It was pretty effective last year. There was a lot of kids that at least visited the area. I don't know how much successful it was from keeping anybody from using drugs, but at least they came over and they said that they were going to do that, and they're walking around with cups that say that too, so, okay. Effort.
Thank you, Larry. Anyone else? The next item of business is departments. We have none scheduled. Claims, we have none scheduled. The next item of business after that is executive session for Horseshoe Bend update. And City Council may vote to enter into executive session pursuant to ARS Revised Statutes 38-431.03, 1 and 4 and 7 for discussion, consideration of employment, assignment of an employee or of a public body, discussion or consultation of the city attorney in order to consider its position and instruction the city attorney regarding public body's position regarding contracts that are subject to negotiations and discussions or consultation with the designated representatives of the public body in order to consider its position and instruct its representatives regarding negotiations for sale, lease, or real property. Horseshoe Bend. I'd entertain the motion to go into executive session.
Move to go into executive session.
We're going to be going into executive session. It is 8:31. We will be returning to the dais, and there could be discussion and possible action on Horseshoe Bend at that particular time.
Don't we have to vote on it?
I did. Oh, we did call it.
And we haven't voted. So all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Nay. Okay. Are you remaining out? The rest of it, we're going to be going into executive session. It's 8:32, and we will be returning to the dais for possible discussion and action.
I am going to remain out.